hospital corridors pulsed with routine, steady footsteps of nurses, muted chatter between doctors, the rhythmic beeping of monitors blending into the quiet hum of machines. St. Andrew's Medical Center was a place of healing, of schedule, of calm predictability. Officer Ben, a longtime hospital security guard, leaned casually against the wall near the ICU ward, sipping his usual afternoon coffee. His uniform was slightly wrinkled, and his expression passive, the look of a man who'd seen it all. To him, this was just another shift among hundreds. Another day of elevators, visitor questions, and blank surveillance screens. But today, something was different. Across the hallway, a retired canine unit named Shadow, a large German shepherd with years of police service behind him, patrolled quietly beside his new handler, Officer Ray. Though officially retired, Shadow had been recently brought into hospital service for light-duty work, part therapy dog, part security presence. Calm, intelligent, and unusually perceptive. Shadow carried a legacy of sharp instincts and silent vigilance as they neared the ICU. Shadow slowed, then stopped. His ears twitched, his stance stiffened, his eyes narrowed and locked onto a single point. Officer Ben. A low, unmistakable growl rumbled from his throat. Ray noticed immediately. Shadow. He murmured, but before he could react further, Shadow barked, a loud, sharp sound that cut through the hallway like a gunshot. Not random, not agitated, a trained alert. Conversations halted mid-sentence. A doctor froze in place. Nurses turned, confused. Patients craned their necks from behind curtains. Ben startled, nearly spilling his coffee. "Whoa, what's his problem?" he asked with an awkward smile, both palms raised. Shadow didn't flinch. His eyes stayed on Ben. He barked again. Louder, more urgent this time. Officer Ray's brows furrowed. He tightened the leash. "Shadow, heel." But Shadow didn't obey. He stepped forward, teeth exposed slightly, not in aggression, but in deep warning. His tail was stiff, his body low. He planted himself directly between Ben and the hallway behind him, guarding what the hell's going on. Ben said, voice tightening, a trace of unease creeping in. His smirk faded. Nurses exchanged glances. One backed up and accidentally knocked over a metal tray. The crash echoed through the tense corridor, but Shadow didn't blink. Ray kneeled beside the dog. "Talk to me, buddy," he whispered, placing a calm hand on the shepherd's side. Shadow's muscles were coiled like a spring. Ray had worked with Canine South for over a decade. He knew this behavior. This wasn't aggression. This wasn't anxiety. This was an alert, a serious one. Shadow wasn't sensing danger around Ben. He was sensing it in him. Ray stood up and gestured for a nearby nurse. "Get someone from admin," he said quietly, "and call for a medical team on standby." Ben's face went pale. "You're kidding, right?" Shadow barked a third time. This one short, clipped final. The air grew heavy, like a thunderstorm about to break. Backup had been called. Within minutes, 2 uniformed officers arrived at the hospital corridor, their boots echoing down the polished floor. The scene they stepped into was surreal. A retired canine barking non-stop at a hospital security guard, nurses frozen mid-motion, and the entire ICU hallway charged with unease. "What's happening here?" the senior officer asked, approaching carefully. Ray didn't take his eyes off Shadow. He's alerting hard, not acting out, not attacking. He's sensing something. The officer followed Shadow's unwavering line of sight, straight to Officer Ben, who now stood stiff and sweating. His hands were twitchy, his breathing shallow. Ben forced a bitter chuckle. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but this mutt's got it wrong." Ray said nothing. Shadow growled again, deep, sustained. He hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. His focus was absolute. The senior officer nodded to his partner. "Clear the area." Nurses guided patients away. An orderly shut off hallway access. The hospital corridor became silent, just the bark, the tension, and the uncomfortable stare down between a K9 and a man unraveling at the seams. One officer approached Ben. "We'll need to check you. It's standard if the dog alerts." Ben shifted. "Seriously, I'm staff. You think I'm smuggling something in a hospital?" "No one's accusing you," the officer said calmly. "We just have to rule things out." Ben hesitated. Then Shadow barked again, sharp and final, as if confirming the threat. That hesitation told Ray everything. "Search him," Ray said. The officers moved in. Professionally, no aggression, just protocol. They patted Ben down. At first, nothing suspicious. Radio, badge, clipboard. But then, "What's this?" one of them asked, pressing gently on a bulge beneath Ben's uniform shirt, right along his side. Ben flinched. "Old injury," he mumbled, but his voice cracked. Ray looked to Shadow. The dog let out one low, guttural growl, body tense, posture locked forward, tail straight as steel. Something wasn't right. "Get a medic," Ray said, standing. Ben opened his mouth to protest, but his knees buckled. He collapsed. His coffee cup hit the floor. His hand clutched his side. He cried out in pain. "Move!" One of the officers shouted. Ray caught him mid-fall, lowering him onto his back. Ben's face was gray. Sweat poured down his forehead. Medics arrived within moments, sliding onto the floor with emergency kits. One lifted Ben's shirt, massive abdominal swelling. One said, "He's burning up." "This isn't an injury," the other confirmed. "This is a ruptured appendix, maybe worse." Gasps rippled through the hallway. The barking hadn't been aggression, it had been alarm. Ray looked down at Shadow. The shepherd was silent now, focused, but calm. His work was done. Ben was wheeled quickly onto a stretcher and rushed to the operating theater. Just before they pushed him through the swinging double doors, Ben looked back at Ray. Double quotes. "How? ... How? Did he know?" Ray didn't answer. He didn't need to. Inside the operating room, the situation was dire. Ben's appendix had ruptured. An infection had already started spreading through his abdomen. Surgeons worked with relentless urgency. Every minute mattered. IVs were administered, vitals tracked, antibiotics flooded his system. The race wasn't just against time, it was against death. Outside, Shadow sat silently beside Ray in the corridor. The retired K9 was calm now, no barking, no growling, only alert eyes, resting posture, and the quiet dignity of someone who knew he had done something right. Ray exhaled slowly, still processing what had just unfolded. Word of the incident spread like wildfire across the hospital. "I've seen K9 South sniff out bombs, narcotics, ... even missing persons," one young officer muttered, shaking his head. "But this..." He predicted a rupture. Doctors passed by in scrubs, heads slightly bowed, glancing at the dog with awe. Nurses who once questioned the barking now stared at Shadow with reverence. Ray finally sat down on a bench, adrenaline draining from his limbs. He placed his hand gently on Shadow's back. "You knew," he whispered, "before the symptoms, before the pain." And he had. Shadow had sensed the crisis before it broke, before Ben had even realized something was wrong. Was it scent? Heat? An imperceptible change in body chemistry? Ray didn't know. What he did know was that Shadow hadn't been stopping. A threat. He had been trying to save a life. Hours passed. The corridor slowly returned to its usual rhythm, beeping machines, rolling beds, intercom calls. But something had shifted. Everyone who'd witnessed the event now moved a little slower when passing Shadow. They nodded. Some whispered "good boy." Some just smiled through damp eyes. Then the surgeon appeared. He pulled off his mask and approached Ray. His face was lined with exhaustion, but there was a faint smile. "He's stable," the surgeon said. "It was close. A few more minutes and we might have lost him, but he'll make it." Ray blinked, then nodded slowly. The room exhaled with him. That evening, Ray took Shadow outside for air. The hospital's courtyard, usually deserted at night, was now lit warmly. Nurses and staff watched from windows. A janitor gave a soft wave. 2 patients in wheelchairs smiled as Shadow passed. He had become more than a K9. That day, he had become a hero. Later, in the security room, the entire event was reviewed on camera. Every second of the alert, from the first bark to the final collapse, was recorded. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't instinct gone wild. It was precise, timed, focused. It was a message, delivered by a dog trained to detect danger. Only this time, the danger wasn't in a bag or behind a wall. It was inside a man's body. Ray sat down beside Shadow on a bench near the emergency exit. The moonlight hit the dog's fur in silver streaks. Ray scratched behind his ears. "You didn't just bark," he said softly. "You spoke." Shadow turned to look at him, tail wagging slowly. From that day forward, no one in that hospital ever questioned a bark again. And every time Shadow walked those halls, people didn't just see a working dog. They saw the partner who had spoken without words and saved a life in the silence.